we have to create our own version of our own pension so that we can take care of ourselves in our 60s and beyond.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
So many families feel overwhelmed, drowning in debt, stuck in jobs that drain them, and worried they'll miss out on the moments that matter most. But imagine a life where money fuels freedom, where your family thrives, and where time is truly your own. That's the vision today's guest, Andy Hill, brings to life. As the award-winning creator of Marriage, Kids, and Money, featured in CNBC, Forbes, and NBC News, Andy has inspired millions with his practical steps for building wealth and joy at home. With his book, Own Your Time, he's showing families everywhere how to escape the corporate grind and put family first. This is the Midland Money Mindset, where money meets meaning. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, we have Andy Hill, award-winning family finance coach behind Marriage, Kids, and Money today, and I am excited to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So listen, I want to get into the meat of what we're going to do is talk about what you're doing today and the book, et cetera. But can you share with our audience, our listeners, a little bit about who you are, your entrepreneurial journey up until this point? Because they really find that fascinating. Everybody takes a different path, but there are also some similarities in there. So if you could take a few minutes and share your path and what that looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. My name is Andy Hill, family finance coach. I've been at that since about 2016. And the reason it was around 2016 is that I had a corporate job that I was in for corporate life for about 15 years, and I was just feeling stuck. I needed something besides my corporate grind and young parenting. I think I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. So if you've lived that life, you know that there's not a lot of time for you in that scenario. And so I needed something. I needed an outlet outside of my corporate job and young parenting. So I decided to start a podcast where I connected with like-minded people who are interested in building wealth and happiness for their families. Partly it was just like a therapeutic outlet to connect with other people. And then, in the back of my mind, could this be something? Could this be a business that I would grow into? And almost 10 years later, yes, this is my full-time job. I will say, I guess I do it part-time. So full-time is a difficult word to use, but I left my corporate job about 5 years ago and have been pursuing this new life, this solopreneur life since then. And I love every minute of it.
So, did you have anybody growing up that you looked after, saw that was an entrepreneur as well, that you kind of had an idea of what that life was? Or did you just kind of wing and prayer it from corporate life to solopreneur life?
I think around that time, I was really inspired just listening to podcasts. My brother-in-law at the time had done that. He left his corporate, he was a pharmaceutical sales guy, and he up and quit and said, I'm going to start a brewery with my friend. And man, at that time, that kind of probably sounded a little nuts, but they pooled up a little bit of money and they made it happen. And they've been at it for 15 years now. They're a very successful brewery, and they're up in northern Michigan. And so with that inspiration and his idea to me of, hey, listen to some podcasts. It's really it's becoming a thing. I heard a bunch of stories just like his that were super inspiring that said, hey, if you have a dream and you put your work behind that dream, this can happen. And it might take a while, but isn't that a life worth living? And so I got inspired by a lot of those stories, as well as my brother-in-law, David. And that kind of launched me.
Well, you broke the mold, because there aren't a lot of people that go out there and say that their brother-in-law inspired them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could be the opposite, right? They uninspire you, right?
Yeah, usually it's the brother-in-law in a different vein, but in this case, it seems like it worked out well for you. So that's amazing.
No, he's a fantastic guy. I love him to pieces. He's fantastic.
That's great. It's great stuff. So where did the inspiration come for you to kind of found this marriage, kids, and money concept? I mean, was that along the similar lines or did that come later on?
Yeah, again, I think it was around creating that podcast, and that was it. It was 2016. It was called that, Marriage, Kids, and Money. And the inspiration was really just those were the things that were on my mind all of the time. How can I be a better husband? How can I be a great father, the two kids that I have? And how can I manage the tool that I've been given, this money, to give a great life to my family? And so I wanted to design the podcast and the discussions around those topics because that's what was on my mind all the time and something that I thought about and wanted to connect with other people who thought about it in a similar fashion, putting family first and trying to, hack away at the unessential, the things that aren't a part of that mission. And so it's been a really great journey.
You talk a lot about sharing your journey, right? And having these conversations.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what are you looking to empower the other side, the listener? What are you looking to help them do? Or what are you looking for them to take away from all that you do?
My favorite shows that I've been listening to for a long time are the ones where people share real stories of struggle and triumph and reaching a point that is inspiring. So I wanted to create a show similarly. I wanted to share our story back from where we started when we got married, which was negative $50,000 net worth, and saying, oh my gosh, we're spending all that's coming in. What can we do to give our family a better life, all the way to where we are today? And then I also wanted to interview people who are doing the same thing that are super inspiring, because I feel like those transparent stories are really where the human side to podcasting, to any sort of medium, come through, because we can preach at people all day long. We can say, do this, don't do that. But it isn't until you hear somebody's personal story that you actually feel motivated, that you feel the human connection where you can say, oh, I can see myself in that person's story, and then feel motivated. It's kind of like parenting a little bit if you think about it.
Right.
I say a lot of things to my kids, but it isn't until that I demonstrate those things to my kids that they actually start listening.
All right. So yeah, the podcasting is a great platform for doing that, for sure. Yeah. You speak about the power of creating your own pension plan. Now, that's something that gets talked about a lot. Can you share what you mean by that when you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my father, God bless him, lived in the era of the pension.
Mine too.
Worked for a company for 30 plus years. They take care of you. You can retire in your 50s. And receive a pension until your dying day, which is a beautiful concept. And as that faded from existence, and with the rise of the 401k plan and things like that, it became incumbent on us to create our own pension. So for me, when I was in my corporate job, I said, well, I don't want to be doing this forever. So when I was in my corporate job, I saw that as an opportunity to have a great saving rate where I can increase my ability to contribute to my 401k, take advantage of my employer match, max out a Roth IRA, even an HSA for a period of time, and then essentially create your own pension. So you're creating this pile of assets that can, over time, continue to compound over decades to start to build you multimillionaire wealth in your 60s, which is a beautiful concept. And so my dad teases me sometimes. He's like, that's amazing. You're one of the first millionaires in our family. I'm like, well, Dad, your pension is essentially making you a millionaire. Like, it might not be on paper, but the value of what you have is beautiful, and it gives you perpetual wealth, until you die. He's like, oh, I like your version of it. So what my father had or has, I needed to create for myself. So I know that's a lot of people in today's society, that we have to create our own version of our own pension so that we can take care of ourselves in our 60s and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. I find my dad was a pensioner. Well, is a pensioner.
Yeah.
He's was a New York City school teacher, and we used to joke like that was his biggest asset. We don't know what that return is going to be until it's all said and done, but it's basically the equivalent of multi-million-dollar asset that people like you, me, and really most people entering the workforce today are going to have to replicate on their own because they're not getting that same level of assistance from their employers that they used to.
Absolutely. And Social Security is a nice thing for us to be aware of. It shouldn't be ignored, but for us to think it will be the end-all be-all is something that could be troublesome for us if we only rely on that for our 60s and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. As someone who also works with their spouse, What tips do you have for those who want to build something with their spouse? Because I think a lot of people sit there and thinking, oh, I'd love to do this, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if this is something, how could I spend that much time or have these discussions? So, that's something I get asked very often. I'm sure you do too. What tips do you have for those who are considering it or thinking about it?
Yeah, I'll be candid with you, Larry. There's been ups and downs in that and good
Sure.
ways. There was a period of time during the pandemic where I had been working on my show and my business for, about 4 years at that point. And Nicole, my wife, looked at me and said, hey, maybe we should do a show together about, us just chatting over a glass of wine and talking about money. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the best thing you've ever said to me. I would love to work with you. This sort of work-life integration. I've been building my business over here and trying to have my marriage over here and my kids over here. It's like these separations of identities is difficult as an individual or a father or a husband. So if I could merge some of them, that would just been fantastic. And we were able to do that for a couple of years. But yeah, there's some realities to working with your spouse. It's not just your business idea and here, honey, do exactly as I say with this business idea. That doesn't always work out the best. And it wasn't until we had some conversations on essentially leaning on each other's strengths. So for example, I would hands down say my wife is more creative than I am, more fun than I am, more humorous than I am. So I'm like, okay, any opportunity for you to come up with ideas for the show, any ideas for you to come up with themes for the show, like that's on you. Let's call you like the creative director, essentially.
Right.
I'll get all this stuff done. Like I don't mind doing it. I don't mind being busy and having it, make sure I'm focusing on SEO and making sure that the episodes are showing up on Google and things like that. And so when we leaned into each other's strengths, that helped out a lot. That being said, she only wanted to do it for a few years. So we found ways to work together back and forth throughout the years. She'll show up on the show every once in a while and everybody will get excited again because she's really great. Yeah, it's been in and out over the past probably 5 years. But anytime I get to do anything with her, I'm over the moon.
Yeah. Listen, I enjoy working with my wife, but I've talked about the challenges we have. Like I'm a early riser, get to work, get moving early and early to bed. And she's a late riser, late, burning the midnight oil, so to speak. And we'll be sitting on the couch, doing whatever I like, ready to be mindless for a little while. And she'd be like, I have this great idea, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, email me. I'll read it in the morning.
Exactly right.
I'm like, I'm done. I'm toast today. So you got to get over those hurdles for sure.
I'm similar to that. Absolutely. I need to, At the end of the day, I am done and my brain stops working.
There you go. Much more fresh in the morning.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I think changes over time, and you talked about early on getting married, being in debt at that point, right? I think one of those other inflection points is when you become a parent. And how did learning that you would be a parent transform how you thought about money?
Yeah.
Did it have an impact?
It really was the thing that kind of turned things around for me. I think when Nicole and I got married again, we had that negative $50,000 net worth. And net worth isn't something I even was aware of at the time. We were watching the Susie Orman show because I'm a nerd and I like to watch financial TV shows. She had that segment, How Am I Doing? Where she'd give people details on their situation. And then she kept on using that term, net worth, net worth, net worth. And she would give people a grade A through F on their financial situation. And I was watching it at the time with my wife and being like, oh, I'm sure we would get an A, combined. You and I are making $130,000. Like we're killing it. And then we said, oh, let's try to figure out what our net worth is. And we wrote it on the board, assets on one side, liabilities on the other. And we found out we had a negative net worth. And we're like, oh my gosh, we are not killing it. We may be making six figures, but we are not killing it. We owe a lot more than we own. And now we are bringing our daughter into the world soon. My mind went to what can I do to protect my daughter? And the protection mode went to finances. What can I do to give her a better life? What can I do to have her grow up in a household where two parents aren't fighting about money or arguing about things, about what's best? And then also setting her up for success as early as possible. So I became very interested in learning about these things. I learned more details beyond net worth about how to grow our wealth. And those conversations started to come up in our marriage. And my issue, again, talking about how we can speak to our spouses in a good way, is I approached her with that numbers mindset of like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we grew our net worth or paid off our debt or increased our savings rate? And I remember one day she came home from work, a job that she really wasn't that into, and she's pregnant, just that didn't really have that great of a day. And I approached her with my plan, my numbers plan, right? And man, the blank stare that she gave me after I went into a diatribe about like how great it's going to be. And I don't even think she said anything. I think she just walked away. But I think the reality is I just wasn't speaking her language.
Right.
It sounded like deprivation to her. It sounded like, hey, let's go without for a really long time, but for what? So it wasn't until I started to speak in terms of her language, of the things that she cares about, the emotional payoff of all this hard work, that we really started to connect. And for her at the time, she had a job she didn't like. She was pregnant. She wanted to be able to stay at home with her daughter when she came into the world, maybe start off working part-time, but eventually be a stay-at-home mom. And that's when we started to connect. When I started to bring up those things, the emotional payoff, like the why, instead of leading with the numbers, that's when we really started to connect and make some progress together.
Yeah, well, as you know, it's never about the numbers. There's always something else behind it.
But I forget it every day, Larry. I forget it every day.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think we've all been inundated with the numbers and told it's the numbers, but it's not the numbers,
It's not the numbers.
Do you know finances can be joyful with your partner? We created a fantastic guide for couples to start their journey surrounding their finances. Head over to Midland.us/couplesjoy to download your free copy today. Don't miss out. Start bringing more joy into your financial conversations. I'm curious about this because you mentioned working with your wife, having her on the show, and being in and out over the last 5 years or so. Now, you've also had your children on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah.
Why have you had your children on the podcast? What was the goal there?
Well, I think it's twofold, really. I wanted to have a way to connect with my kids and talk to them about something that I'm interested in, and then hopefully bring them on board with that interest, because I believe knowledge for your personal finances early on can make a huge difference for the overall well-being of your life. And I wanted that for my kids. So I've had them on the show as co-hosts since probably Zoe was 5, maybe Calvin was 4. And they'll come on and they'll do like a little mini money quiz or something like that. Or Calvin and I will read a good news story that's happening out in the world, because there's a lot of bad news out there, Larry, as you know. Yeah. So it's great to highlight that good stuff. And it helps to remind me and him of the positive nature that is out in the world if we're hard enough looking for it. And so my second fold for that, having them on the show, is to be able to pay them as well. So, I mean, if they're working on the business, I can pay them a reasonable amount of money for the real work that they're doing. It is not a lot of money, but over time, if you start at 4 or 5 years old and you continually have some presence with engaging your kids in the business, then you can find ways to invest for them. You can find ways to save for them, teach them about the importance of giving back in their community. And then, of course, with the bulk of it, have some fun money to spend on things that they care about, whether that is Roblox or squishy toys. And now my daughter's a teenager, and it's mostly like Sephora and clothing stuff. So,
there you go.
But over the years, it's been fantastic.
I think your kids, like my kids, they're in that privileged category that they have somebody who's actually skilled and knowledgeable in this area. Because I don't think, as much as the schools are trying to lean into this, I don't think they're really able to in a meaningful way. So to have somebody like you at their side to help them walk through and educate them is, puts them light years ahead of a lot of people as a result.
I think she recognizes that too, but just not so much, whereas you'd almost compliment your dad, but she'd be like, hey, I've got my own debit card. I've got my own money. I've got my own spending money. It makes me feel independent and autonomous, when I'm out there with my friends, and my friends don't have any of their own, or they're just continually getting cash from their parents whenever they go anywhere. And she realizes that is a different type of mindset. And she, I believe, over time, hopefully she'll be grateful for those lessons.
Yeah, there'll be a time when she gets out of the teenage years probably that she'll look back and thank you for it. But I've gotten 2 thank yous from my boys individually over the last couple of weeks. So
there you go.
Or,
good.
You're right. Thank you.
Ooh, I like that.
Which is amazing. But they're 19 and 22, so you might have to hold that.
I got to wait a little bit.
You might have to hold out a little bit longer.
I'll be ready in a decade.
Yeah. So I mean, if the research is right, and talking about your kids, especially younger, if the research is right and money habits really cement around the age of 7 or so, What are your best tips for parents when it comes to educating their children about how money works?
Yeah, I think I'd say my first tip would be to try your best to remove that stigma that is in our society about talking about money in general. And it doesn't have to be like I did with my wife, here's the numbers and cents and all the details. It can be as simple as going to the grocery store and then just talking about needs versus wants, like things that are out there that here's some things we need, here's some things that we want, and just talking about the difference between those things and looking at the costs of things. It's just having intellectual, individual conversations about the reality of money in life, and then also bringing it back to money being a tool, not the end all be all, not the most important thing. And if you get all the money, then you're going to be happy. But like, this is a tool for you to live the life that you want to live. So having those types of conversations, not vilifying money or making it be like a godlike status, just simply making it be a tool and having conversations around that can be very impactful. And then once they are old enough to support around the house, that could be chores or any other way, getting money in their hands, I think, is a great way for them to learn about it, because we can talk about money all day long, but it isn't until somebody actually has money in their hands and can make a decision with it that they actually learn how to use it and the impact of it. And then let them fail. It's okay if they fail at 4, 5, 6, 12, whatever. Much better than them failing at 30 with like 30 grand than 3 with $3. You know what I mean? Like, let's get those impacts out early so that they can learn about it. And then when they do get money in their hands, I like to break it down in the 60-40 generational wealth plan, which is 60% going to smart spending, 20% going to investing, 10% to giving, and 10% to saving. Just because if we can start this process early, they can realize that not all money needs to be spent and not all of it needs to be saved either.
Right.
And finding a balance that these 4 categories can help you have a wealthy and happy life. So if you can start those tactics early, then maybe by the time they're 18 or 20, they'll hold on to some of them and remember, oh, I remember when my dad said it's important to invest. I should probably ask about this 401k, or I should probably give to my local house of worship or give back in my community in some fashion. So I think that having these conversations early and then splitting up the money in that fashion can help our children realize that it is a really powerful tool that can help them live a great life.
Yeah, I agree. We very early on used a 3-slotted piggy bank. It was spend, save, and charity to teach them. I think the biggest challenge for parents now is actually to put the part where you said put money in their hands.
Yes.
I mean, that means you got to go to the ATM and actually get money out of the machine and hand them, because a lot of us don't have that lying around. I mean, that's a challenge in itself these days.
That's a great point. And I think when they were younger, we were more on the tactile physical money thing. But then as they got older, that just became so difficult with transferring money back into the ATM. So for a while, we used Ally and their custodial account for making that process easy with a debit card. Recently, we've gone with a company called Crew that helps you have these digital buckets for your kids, and it helps them to have sort of like digital envelope budgeting, and then it helps them to spend accordingly. So there are great fintech tools out there to make this process a lot easier. I know my daughter really likes that because she can look on an app and see how much money she has and where she can spend. And it becomes less questions back and forth to mom and dad about like, can I spend this? Where can I spend this? And how can I spend it? Because it's already broken down for her in that fashion. So I love what fintech is doing for parenting out there. It just makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah, some great tools. And, I like what you talk about imprinting upon them at an early age also about charity and giving to those that are less fortunate, and including that in part of the framework. And that's something we speak about often on the show, is the power behind giving. Why do you think giving is so impactful? And beyond what you described earlier, where you kind of are talking to them about this and doing it, how have you also imprinted that into your children so it's something that they'll take on with them in perpetuity?
Yeah, when they were younger, we used to do a tradition called the Big Give. I like to label things with names just to make them more impactful. And we would get together once per month and we would empty that give jar, the physical jar with money in it when they were younger. And we would count up the money. And then I would ask them, what are you grateful for in your life? What are you thankful for? What are the things that you have that you really, really love. And my son might say something like, well, I'm really happy for my house. I've got a roof over my head. And my daughter would say, I love our kitty. I love our cats, things like that. And so then we would talk about, well, some people don't have those things. Some people are missing those things in life. Maybe we could help with some of our money, a very small amount of our money, to give those nice things to people out there in the community. We would look up charities that would support those causes, and they would give their money to those organizations. And we'd make it a fun event. So we'd dump out the jar, we'd count the money, we'd get a milkshake, and we'd just make it like a thing, like a fun moment. And I would do that probably on like a quarterly basis while they were younger. And that could be a fun way to celebrate things with Dad. When my son was 4, we did this. And he decided to give to an organization called Say Detroit, and they provide homes to people in our community that are displaced or don't have a place to live. And after we gave the donation, I think it was like $7 or something like that. And then my wife and I doubled the giving, so it was $14 just to, get it out there. We wrote a letter to Say Detroit just saying, hey, this is from Calvin Hill, who wants to support the organization. He's 4 years old, lives in Metro Detroit. We got invited to speak with the founder of that organization, Mitch Albom, who is a very famous author and runs that organization here in Metro Detroit. He invited my son Calvin on his national radio show during the holidays and had him on as a guest and asked him about his giving and how he did it. So it was just like, man, this couldn't have come together better in a way for him to realize that. And of course, he's 4 years old, but I show him that video just to remind him of that generosity. It is really something that has grabbed onto his heart too. I think that he can give a little easier than me, even than my wife. It just feels like something that is a part of his nature. But it could definitely be something that you're born with, but I think it's something that can be presented to you. And then maybe you say, wow, I really do enjoy that. Mm-hmm. I really am into that. And then to see my father do it, to see my mother do that, knowing that it's a part of something that is a family tradition can get people really inspired. So that's just one tradition that we did with our kids. And as they got older, we've updated the traditions and talked about the importance of not only giving to charities, but also giving to your family members, giving to people who are maybe on the street that could use a little hand, giving big tips during the holidays. Like, it doesn't always have to be a tithe to your church or giving to a charity. Just giving and service to others really has been proven scientifically to improve your overall happiness as an individual. Sure. And so don't we want that for our children?
Yeah, of course. You've created your own family donor advised fund almost, right?
Exactly.
Without any of the investing and ramifications of such.
Exactly, right. And proving the 501c3 of it all, right? Exactly.
Right. There you go. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree. The old saying used to be given till it hurts. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. It should be given till you feel good. Because if you do those things like your son's experience, there's a lot of good that comes out of it and makes you feel good. Yeah. And it sounds like he's really, holding on to that. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So let's shift for a moment and talk about the book, right? Why did you write Own Your Time? What do you hope readers will take away from the book?
Yeah, I think that we're in a difficult time right now for parents. There was a U.S. Surgeon General warning, I think about a year or two ago, that said parents are their most stressed out they've ever been. And two of the main reasons for that stress are limited time and limited financial resources. So I just felt like it was a very, very good time to give back to the parents out there who are maybe looking for an answer on, is this really the situation that I need to be in as a parent? Do I need to feel claustrophobic all the time with the amount of stress and anxiety that I have and just trying to keep my head above water? Or is there another path? And so I wanted to design a book and lay it out in a 10-step fashion that helps parents go from stressed to free, to feeling like that they can become empowered with their money and utilize it in the best way forward so that they can experience more time freedom. And for my wife and I, that has meant moving away from corporate careers that really did take up maybe 50 to 60 hours of our week individually, now to working just part-time 20 to 25 hours a week. I do love the FIRE movement. I think it's a really neat idea, but moving from 50 to 60 hours a week to 0 hours a week feels almost as extreme as what we're doing in society. So I feel like this middle ground of utilizing your resources and eventually moving to something that feels a little bit more controllable, palatable, but also has a purpose, in your work can be a better path, in my opinion. So moving from frenetic full-time work for two parents, maybe to part-time work for both parents, and you still have essentially a full-time worker with half and half combined, can be a little bit more real for parents. And so I wanted to write a book on how to do that step by step. And it's not a get-rich-quick overnight kind of thing. This is, if you want to move from a path of stress to freedom, this could be a decade path, but it's worth going on.
Yeah. And I think where people who are entering retirement face that same thing. You're seeing people not wanting to go from going 100 miles an hour to zero.
Yes.
There's a way to do it gradually and kind of wean yourself off the corporate and work world if that's what you want to do. So we're looking forward to reading it and glad you're able to share that with us all. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have it out there.
Yeah. Listen, Andy, it's been a pleasure. We end each of our shows by asking our guests the same final question because we are the Midland Money Mindset and we're all about joy. And this conversation, quite frankly, has brought me a lot of joy on itself. But what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Oh, man. Well, today is Monday, and depending on when you're listening to this, it might not be Monday, but it's Monday for me. And part of the lifestyle that my wife and I have designed is not starting work until the afternoon on Monday. And so this morning I got up, I had a cup of coffee with my wife. I went for a run with her. I went to the gym. I made a heart-healthy meal and got me just so excited to start my work day. And I love my work now. So I look forward to Mondays. So just starting off my life in a way that was intentional and just felt so much better than where I was 5-6 years ago. So having that type of control.
No more Sunday scaries.
No
right?
Sunday scaries, man. I'm excited for Mondays now.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, listen, Andy, it's been a pleasure having you on, and we're going to have all of your information in the show notes. But if people want to learn more about you or connect with you, learn about the book, Own Your Own Time, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, best place to go would be marriagekidsandmoney.com. You can find information about the book, our podcast, our YouTube channel. We are working on pre-orders right now. The book is coming out on January 21st. And if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to marriagekidsandmoney.com/book and learn more there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for taking out time of your busy day and your shortened Monday. I appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Larry.
Andy, thank you for joining us on the Midland Money Mindset and sharing your wisdom on building wealth, family, and freedom. Your journey with marriage, kids, and money, and now your book, Own Your Time, shows families that financial independence isn't just about dollars. It's about creating a joyful life that truly puts families first. We're grateful for your insights and the inspiration you've given our listeners today. Andy Hill and everything he's up to can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.